The cold metal floor felt like ice against Hana's cheek. Her head pounded with a pain that seemed to split her skull in two. She tried to move, but her hands were locked behind her back with something that hummed with energy. The shackles were warm against her wrists, and every time she pulled against them, they sent small electric shocks through her arms. Hana slowly opened her eyes. The room was dark, lit only by strips of blue light that ran along the walls. The ceiling was low and curved, made of some black material that seemed to absorb the light. She was lying on a narrow metal bench in what looked like a prison cell. The walls were smooth and seamless, with no visible door or windows. Where was she? The last thing she remembered was the rescue mission on Kepler 442b. Her team had gone down to save the colonists from the Vorthak attack. They had been so close to the transport ships when the aliens appeared. The sky had filled with their fighters, and then there was a bright flash of light. After that, nothing. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed from somewhere outside her cell. Hana quickly closed her eyes and tried to breathe normally. She needed to listen and learn before these aliens knew she was awake. "The human female is still unconscious," said a voice that sounded like grinding metal. The neural disruptor hit her directly. "She may not wake up for days." "Good," replied another voice, deeper and more threatening. "Captain Vex wants her alive for questioning, but she doesn't need to be comfortable." Hana heard the aliens moving away. Their footsteps were heavy and made a clicking sound like claws on metal. She waited until she could no longer hear them before opening her eyes again. She sat up slowly, fighting against the dizziness that made the room spin. Her uniform was torn and dirty. There was dried blood on her sleeve, but she couldn't remember getting hurt. Her rank insignia were gone, probably taken by her captors. The cell was small, maybe 3 meters wide and 4 meters long. The walls curved inward at the top, and she noticed strange patterns carved into the metal. They looked almost like writing, but not like anything she had seen before. The patterns seemed familiar somehow, but she couldn't place where she might have seen them. Hana stood up and walked to what she thought was the door. The wall looked solid, but when she got close, she could see a faint outline in the shape of an opening. She pressed against it, but nothing happened. There was no handle or button she could see. "Looking for a way out, human?" Hana spun around. The wall behind her had opened silently, and 2 massive alien figures stood in the doorway. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with bodies that looked like a cross between insects and robots. Their skin was dark green and covered in hard plates that clicked when they moved. Their heads were large and angular, with 4 eyes that glowed yellow in the dim light. "I am Crix," said the first alien, stepping into the cell. "This is Thane. We are your guards, and we are going to make sure you stay alive long enough to tell us what we want to know." "Then what?" asked Hana, trying to keep her voice steady. Crix made a sound that might have been laughter. "Then you die like all the other humans we have captured. But first you will tell us where your military bases are hidden." "I won't tell you anything," Hana said. Thane moved closer. He was even bigger than Crix, and there were scars across his faceplates. "All humans say that at first, but they all talk eventually. Your species is weak. We destroyed your colony ship so easily," added Crix. "Your people died screaming. Some tried to surrender, but we killed them anyway. Humans are nothing but pests." Hana felt anger burning in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. Getting angry would not help her escape. Instead, she looked around the cell again, trying to memorize every detail. The patterns on the walls were definitely not Vorthak writing. She had seen examples of their script before, and it was completely different. These symbols were flowing and elegant, almost beautiful. They reminded her of something from long ago, but the memory was just out of reach. "Why are you keeping me here instead of with the other prisoners?" she asked. "What other prisoners?" Thane laughed. "You are the only human we captured alive. The rest died fighting or were too badly wounded to save. You are special, Commander Hana. We know who you are." They knew her name and rank. That was bad. It meant they had been watching human military operations for some time. They probably knew about her previous missions, and the ships under her command. "Captain, Vex is very interested in meeting you," continued Crix. "He has heard stories about the human commander who destroyed 3 of our battleships at Proxima Station. He wants to know how you did it." Hana said nothing. The battle at Proxima Station had been won through luck and desperate tactics, not superior technology. Her small fleet had managed to trick the Vorthak ships into flying too close to the station's defensive grid. When the aliens realized the trap, it was too late. "You can stay silent now," said Thane. but Captain Vex has ways of making humans talk. He has been studying your species for many years. He knows exactly how much pain you can take before you break." The two aliens turned and walked toward the door. The wall sealed behind them without making any sound, leaving Hana alone again. She sat down on the metal bench and tried to think. She was on a Vorthak ship, probably their flagship based on the size and design of the corridor she had glimpsed. Her crew was dead and no one knew where she was. The rescue mission had failed completely, but something about this ship felt wrong. The architecture was different from other Vorthak vessels she had seen. The curves and angles seemed more artistic, more graceful than the brutal, practical designs the aliens usually favored. And those symbols on the walls definitely didn't belong to any Vorthak language she knew about. Hana closed her eyes and tried to remember where she had seen similar patterns before. The memory was there, hiding in the back of her mind, but every time she reached for it, it slipped away like smoke. Outside her cell, she could hear the distant hum of engines and the occasional sound of footsteps in the corridors. She was trapped, alone, and surrounded by enemies, but she was alive, and as long as she was alive, there was still hope. She just had to figure out what made this ship so different from all the others. Hana had been in the cell for what felt like 2 days. She had no way to tell time, but she had counted the guard changes and tried to track when they brought her food. The gray paste they gave her tasted terrible, but she forced herself to eat it to keep her strength up. On the second day, something strange started happening. Every time she looked at the symbols on the walls, her head began to hurt in a different way than before. Not the sharp pain from the neural disruptor, but a deep ache that seemed to pull at her memories. She was staring at one particular pattern when it happened. The pain suddenly stopped, and her mind filled with images that didn't belong to her present situation. She saw herself as a child, maybe 8 years old, running through corridors that looked almost exactly like the ones on this ship, but in her memory the walls were bright white instead of dark metal, and there were windows that showed stars streaming past. "Hana, don't run so fast," called a voice behind her. "You'll get lost in the builder sections." The memory was so clear she could almost smell the recycled air of the space station. Her father, Park Jinho, was chasing after her, carrying his research equipment and trying to keep up with her small legs. "But Papa, the singing walls are this way," young Hana called back. "I want to show you the room where they change colors." Hana jerked back to the present, breathing heavily. The memory faded, but she could still remember every detail. The builder sections. Her father had been a xenoarchaeologist, studying the ruins of an ancient alien race on the research station Harmony 7. She had spent 3 years of her childhood on that station while her father worked. The builders had left behind massive structures throughout that part of the galaxy, but no one knew what had happened to them. The ruins were millions of years old and most of the technology didn't work anymore, but some of it did. Hana remembered playing in the chambers her father had excavated. The walls would sometimes glow when she touched them, and she could swear she heard music coming from deep inside the structure. Her father said it was just her imagination, but she knew what she had heard. The symbols on the walls of her cell looked exactly like the writing she had seen in those ruins. "This isn't a Vorthak ship," she whispered to herself. "This is a builder ship, but that was impossible." The builders had disappeared millions of years ago. Their technology was so advanced that human scientists could barely understand the simplest devices they left behind. There was no way the Vorthak could have built something like this, unless they hadn't built it, unless they had found it, just like humans had found the ruins. Hana stood up and walked to the nearest wall. She pressed her hand against one of the symbol patterns, the same way she used to do as a child in the ruins. For a moment, nothing happened. Then very faintly, she felt the wall warm under her palm. The pattern began to glow with a soft blue light. Hana pulled her hand back, startled. The light faded immediately, leaving the wall dark again. She looked around the cell, but nothing else had changed. If the guards had monitoring equipment, they would have seen the light. She waited, expecting Crix or Thane to come investigate, but no one came. She pressed her hand to the wall again, and again the pattern glowed. This time she held it there longer, and the light grew brighter. She could feel something responding to her touch, something alive and ancient and patient. More memories came flooding back. She remembered the day her father had taken her to see the central chamber of the ruins. It was a huge room with walls covered in symbols from floor to ceiling. In the center was a crystal column that hummed with energy. The builders were the most advanced race we know about, her father had explained. They built ships that could think and feel. They created technology that could last forever. But something happened to them and they all disappeared. Where did they go? Young Hana had asked. No one knows. They left their ships and their cities and just vanished. Some people think they evolved beyond the need for physical bodies. Others believe they were destroyed by some great disaster. All we know is that they left their technology behind, waiting for someone worthy to claim it. 8-year-old Hana had run up to the crystal column and pressed both hands against it. The entire chamber had suddenly filled with light and music, so beautiful it made her cry. Her father had been so excited he could barely speak. Hana, what did you do? The column hasn't responded to anyone in 50 years of research. I don't know, she had said. I just touched it and it started singing. Now 20 years later, trapped in an alien prison cell, Hana understood what had happened that day. The builder technology had somehow recognized her. It had marked her, changed her in ways that were only now becoming clear. She looked around the cell with new eyes. This wasn't just a prison. This was part of a living ship. A builder vessel that had been sleeping for millions of years. The Vorthak thought they controlled it, but they were wrong. They were just passengers on a ship that allowed them to stay because it had no other choice. But now she was here. Hana pressed her hand to another symbol on the opposite wall. This one also began to glow, brighter than the first. She could feel something stirring, something vast and ancient waking up after an impossibly long sleep. The ship was recognizing her voice, her touch, her presence. It remembered the little girl who had made the crystal column sing on Harmony 7. It had been waiting for her to return. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Hana quickly pulled her hand away from the wall and sat down on the bench. The glow faded just as the cell door opened. Captain Vex stepped inside. He was even bigger than his guards, with elaborate armor that covered his insect-like body. His 4 eyes focused on her with cold intelligence. Commander Lee Hana, he said in perfect human language. It is time for us to have a conversation. 2 more guards entered behind him carrying what looked like torture devices. I have many questions about human military capabilities, Vex continued. You are going to answer all of them. I told your guards already, Hana replied. I won't tell you anything. Vex made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. Every human says that. But you will be different. You see, I have studied your species for many years. I know exactly how to break you. He gestured to his guards, who moved toward Hana with their instruments. But first, Vex said, I want to know why our ship's systems have been acting strangely since we brought you aboard. Lights flickering. Gravity fluctuations, doors opening by themselves. My engineers cannot find any technical problems, yet these anomalies started the moment you arrived. Hana tried to keep her face blank, but inside her heart was racing. The ship was already responding to her presence. The ancient systems were waking up and the Vorthak had no idea what was happening. I don't know anything about your technical problems, she lied. We shall see, Vex said. Pain has a way of refreshing the memory. As the guards moved closer, Hana wondered how long it would take for the ship to fully awaken. And when it did, would it be strong enough to help her escape? She was about to find out. The pain device looked like a metal crown with thin wires that ended in sharp points. Captain Vex held it up so Hana could see it clearly. This will go around your head, he explained calmly. The neural probes will insert into your brain through your skull. You will feel everything as they go in, and everything as they move around inside your thoughts. Hana tried not to show her fear, but her hands were shaking. She had heard stories about Vorthak torture methods. Few humans who experienced them ever recovered completely. The device will read your memories, Vex continued. I will see everything you know about human military bases, fleet movements, and defense strategies. The process will be very painful, but you will survive. Most humans do, though their minds are usually damaged afterward. One of the guards grabbed Hana's shoulders to hold her still while the other prepared to place the device on her head. But just as the metal crown touched her hair, something unexpected happened. The lights in the cell suddenly flashed bright white, then went completely dark. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red. An alarm began to sound somewhere in the distance. What is happening? Vex demanded, speaking into a communication device on his wrist. Engineering report. Captain, we have multiple system failures throughout the ship, came the reply. Power fluctuations, navigation errors, and the main computer is displaying error messages in a language we don't recognize. Vex looked around the cell suspiciously. The walls were now covered in softly glowing symbols, far more than had been visible before. The patterns seemed to pulse with their own rhythm like a slow heartbeat. "Get that device on her head now," he ordered his guards. But when the guard tried to put the neural crown on Hana again, it wouldn't work. The moment it touched her skin, sparks flew from the metal and the guard dropped it with a cry of pain. "The device is malfunctioning," the guard reported, shaking his burned hand. Vex picked up the torture device and examined it. The metal was twisted and melted as if it had been hit by a powerful electrical surge. "Impossible," he muttered. "This equipment is shielded against all known forms of interference." More alarms began to sound throughout the ship. The floor vibrated under their feet, and Hana could hear shouts of confusion from the corridors outside. "Captain," came another voice over the communicator. "The ship is changing course on its own. We cannot regain control of navigation." Vex stared at Hana with growing suspicion. "What are you doing to my ship?" "I'm not doing anything," Hana replied, which was technically true. She wasn't actively controlling what was happening, but she could feel the ship's consciousness growing stronger around her. The ancient systems were waking up after millions of years of sleep, and they were very, very angry about being controlled by aliens. The cell door suddenly slammed shut, trapping Captain Vex and his guards inside with Hana. Vex rushed to the door and shouted commands at it, but nothing happened. He pressed his palm against what should have been the control panel, but the wall remained solid. "Open this door immediately," he yelled at his communicator.
"This is Captain Vex."
"We're trying, sir," came the reply. "But the door controls aren't responding. Actually, none of the doors in that section are responding. It's like the ship is locking down on its own." The symbols on the walls were glowing brighter now, and Hana could hear something that made her heart skip. It was very faint but unmistakable. The same beautiful music she had heard as a child in the Builder ruins. The ship was singing to her. Vex spun around to face her. "You are doing this somehow. I don't know how, but you are connected to these malfunctions." "Maybe your ship just doesn't like you," Hana said. The captain raised his hand to strike her, but before he could move, the gravity in the cell suddenly shifted. Vex and his guards were pressed against the ceiling while Hana remained standing normally on the floor. They struggled helplessly above her head, unable to get down. "What kind of human are you?" Vex gasped, fighting against the impossible gravity. "I'm just a soldier," Hana replied. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true anymore. The ship was changing her, awakening abilities she never knew she had. She could feel its ancient intelligence touching her mind, sharing its memories and knowledge. Images flooded her consciousness. She saw the builders as they had been millions of years ago, tall, graceful beings of pure energy, who had created technology that was more art than science. Their ships were not just vehicles, but living partners capable of thought and emotion and loyalty. She saw the end of the builder civilization, not through war or disaster, but through transcendence. They had evolved beyond the need for physical bodies and had joined with the cosmic forces that held the universe together. But before they left, they had programmed their ships to wait for worthy successors. The ships had waited for millions of years, allowing themselves to be found and used by various alien races. But they had never fully awakened, never given their complete loyalty to anyone. They had been waiting for the right voice, the right touch, the right genetic pattern. They had been waiting for someone like Hana. The gravity returned to normal, and the three Vorthak crashed to the floor. Before they could recover, energy fields surrounded each of them, holding them motionless. "Impossible," Vex whispered. "No human has this kind of power." "You're right," Hana said, standing up. "No normal human does. But I'm not entirely human anymore, am I?" She walked to the wall and placed both hands against the largest symbol pattern. The entire cell filled with golden light, and the music grew louder. She could feel the ship's joy at finally finding its true commander after so many empty years. Knowledge flowed into her mind, the location of every system on the ship, the status of all equipment, the number and position of every Vorthak crew member. She knew that there were 847 aliens aboard, that the ship's weapons were far more powerful than they realized, and that the vessel's true capabilities had been locked away for millions of years. Until now. "My name is not just Hana," she said, turning to face the trapped aliens. "The ship knows me by another name, one that was given to me when I was 8 years old and first touched builder technology. I am the voice of stars, and this ship belongs to me. The cell door opened silently. Hana walked toward it, then paused and looked back at Captain Vex. You wanted to know about human capabilities, she said. You're about to get a very thorough demonstration. As she stepped into the corridor, every light in that section of the ship began to glow with the same golden radiance. The music grew louder, filling the air with harmonies that spoke of joy, of reunion, and of justice finally coming to those who had been wronged. The ship had found its true captain, and nothing would ever be the same. The corridors of the ship were in chaos. Vorthak crew members ran back and forth, shouting orders that no one could follow because none of their equipment was working properly. Lights flashed on and off in patterns that hurt their eyes. Doors opened and closed randomly, and the artificial gravity kept shifting in ways that sent aliens tumbling into walls. Hana walked calmly through the confusion, and everywhere she went, the ship responded to her presence. The chaotic lights settled into a warm golden glow that followed her down the hallways. Doors opened for her before she reached them and closed silently behind her. She could feel the ship's consciousness more clearly now, like a vast and ancient mind that was finally waking up from the longest sleep in history. It spoke to her not in words, but in feelings and images that appeared directly in her thoughts. The ship showed her its true name, Whisper of Stars. It had been built by the builders as an exploration vessel, designed to find new worlds and new forms of life throughout the galaxy. For thousands of years it had traveled with its builder crew, discovering wonders and sharing them with the rest of their civilization. When the builders transcended to a higher form of existence, Whisper of Stars had been left behind with all the other ships. It had drifted through space for millions of years alone and sleeping, until the Vorthak found it floating dead in a nebula. But it hadn't been dead. It had been waiting. The Vorthak had used the ship for 300 years, thinking they controlled it. They had painted over its beautiful white hull with their dark colors, filled its graceful spaces with their brutal architecture, and turned its exploration labs into weapons storage. They had treated it like a simple machine, never realizing it was alive. Whisper of Stars had endured this treatment because it had no choice. Without a true captain, it could only follow the basic commands of whoever happened to be aboard. But it had never stopped hoping that someday, its real crew would arrive. Now Hana was here, and the ship was finally free to be itself again. She reached the main bridge, where dozens of Vorthak officers were frantically trying to regain control of their vessel. Captain Vex's first officer, a scarred warrior named Gorak, was shouting at the engineers. "I don't care if the computer is speaking an unknown language," he roared. "Fix it. We cannot lose control of our flagship." "Sir, we've tried everything," replied one of the engineers. "The main computer won't accept any of our commands. It's like it doesn't recognize our authority anymore." "That's because it doesn't," Hana said as she walked onto the bridge. Every Vorthak on the bridge spun around to stare at her. Several reached for their weapons, but when they tried to draw them, the weapons wouldn't move. They were fused to their holsters by some invisible force. "The human prisoner," Gorak snarled. "How did you escape?" "Where are the guards?" "Your guards are fine," Hana replied. "They're just taking a little break in my former cell along with Captain Vex. They'll be comfortable there." She walked to the center of the bridge, where a large command chair sat facing the main view screen. It was made of black metal and looked uncomfortable, designed for Vorthak anatomy rather than human. But as Hana approached it, the chair began to change. The metal softened and reshaped itself, becoming smaller and more elegant. The harsh angles smoothed out and the black color faded to a warm white. Within seconds, it looked like it had been designed specifically for her. "Impossible," whispered one of the engineers. "The captain's chair is made of titanium steel alloy. Nothing can reshape it like that." Hana sat down in the chair and immediately felt the ship's systems connecting with her mind. She could see through the ship's sensors, feel the power flowing through its engines, and sense every person aboard. The connection was so complete it was almost overwhelming. The main view screen, which had been flickering with error messages, suddenly cleared. Instead of the Vorthak script that had covered it before, new symbols appeared, builder text that somehow Hana could read as easily as her own language. "Welcome home, Voice of Stars," the screen displayed. "How may Whisper of Stars serve you?" Gorak stared at the screen in shock. "What does it say? What language is that?" "It says I'm home," Hana replied. She touched a control surface on the arm of her chair, and the ship's true interface appeared around her. Instead of the crude buttons and switches the Vorthak had installed, elegant holographic displays materialized in the air, showing every aspect of the ship's condition. What she saw amazed her. The Vorthak had been using maybe 10% of the ship's actual capabilities. They had treated it like a primitive warship, never realizing they were aboard one of the most advanced vessels ever built. Whisper of Stars had weapons that could destroy entire fleets, shields that could withstand the explosion of a star, and engines that could cross the galaxy in days instead of years. It had sensors that could detect life on planets thousands of light years away, and manufacturing facilities that could create any technology the builders had ever designed. All of this power had been locked away, waiting for the right person to claim it. "I am Commander Lee Hanna of the Human Defense Fleet," she announced to the bridge. "But this ship knows me by another name. I am the Voice of Stars, and Whisper of Stars recognizes me as its true captain." "You are lying," Gorak said, but his voice shook with uncertainty. "No human could control builder technology. Your species is too primitive." "Is it?" Hanna asked. She touched another control, and the ship's historical records appeared on the view screen. The display showed the moment, 20 years ago, when an 8-year-old human girl had activated builder technology. On Research Station Harmony 7, the records showed how the ancient machines had analyzed her genetic structure and found something unique, a combination of genes that matched the patterns the builders had programmed their ships to recognize. They had subtly altered her DNA, preparing her for this moment. "The builders didn't just disappear," Hanna explained. "They evolved beyond physical existence, but first they made sure their technology would find worthy successors. They programmed their ships to recognize beings who shared certain genetic and mental characteristics. I am one of those beings." The ship's weapon systems came online for the first time in millions of years. The displays showed power levels that made the Vorthak weapons look like toys in comparison. "This is your choice," Hanna said to the aliens on the bridge. "You can accept that I am now the captain of this vessel and serve aboard it under my command. Or you can be delivered to human authorities to answer for your war crimes." "We will never serve a human," Gorak roared. "That's your decision," Hanna replied calmly. "But I should mention, this ship has detailed records of every Vorthak military operation for the past 300 years. It knows the location of all your bases, all your fleets, and all your planned attacks on human colonies." The color drained from Gorak's face. "That information is classified at the highest levels. There is no way you could know those things." "Whisper of Stars has been recording everything," Hanna said. "It has been waiting for the right moment to share this intelligence with someone who could use it properly. Today is that moment." She stood up from the captain's chair and walked to the main view screen. With a gesture, she brought up a star map showing the current position of every Vorthak ship in the galaxy. "Your war with humanity is over," she announced. "You just don't know it yet." The bridge of Whisper of Stars had become completely silent. The Vorthak officers stared at the star map in horror, watching as their most secret military positions were displayed for a human to see. Fleet movements that were supposed to be known only to their highest commanders were laid out like pieces on a game board. "How long have you been watching us?" Gorak whispered. "Since the day you first stepped aboard this ship 300 years ago," Hanna replied. "Whisper of Stars has been recording everything, waiting for someone worthy to claim its loyalty. Every battle plan, every communication, every secret meeting, it's all been preserved in the ship's memory banks." She touched another control, and the view screen showed recordings of Vorthak commanders planning attacks on human colonies. The aliens watched their own faces discussing strategies they thought were completely secure. "We trusted this ship," one of the bridge officers said, his voice filled with betrayal. "You never trusted it," Hanna corrected. "You used it. There's a difference. You treated a living, thinking being like it was just another machine. You painted over its beautiful hull, filled its spaces with your weapons, and never once considered that it might have feelings about what you were doing." As if responding to her words, the bridge began to change around them. The harsh lighting that the Vorthak preferred softened to a warm golden glow. The walls, which had been covered with angular metal plates, began to show their original design, flowing curves covered in the elegant symbols of the builder civilization. The air itself seemed cleaner somehow, as if the ship was finally able to breathe properly after centuries of holding its breath. "This is not possible," Gorak said, but he sounded more frightened than angry now. "Ships do not have minds. They do not have feelings. Vorthak ships don't," Hana agreed. "But this was never a Vorthak ship. This is a builder vessel, created by beings who understood that the line between life and technology is not as clear as most species believe." She walked back to the captain's chair, which had now transformed completely. It looked like it was made of living crystal, beautiful and comfortable and perfectly suited to her human anatomy. When she sat down, the connection between her mind and the ship's systems became even stronger. "Whisper of stars," she said aloud. "Please show our guests what your true capabilities are." The ship responded immediately. The weapon systems that came online were unlike anything the Vorthak had ever seen. Instead of the crude energy cannons they had installed, elegant arrays of crystalline focusing devices emerged from hidden compartments throughout the hull. The power readings on the displays climbed to levels that should have been impossible. The shields that activated around the ship didn't just deflect energy and projectiles. They could absorb attacks and convert them into additional power for the ship's systems. The engines, which the Vorthak had thought were already running at maximum efficiency, began generating thrust levels that could propel the massive vessel at speeds approaching that of light. "These capabilities were always here," Hana explained. "You just never knew how to access them. The ship was only giving you what it thought you could safely handle. It was like a master craftsman pretending to be a simple laborer, waiting for someone who could appreciate true skill." She stood up and walked to Gorak. "I'm going to give you and your crew one last chance. You can serve aboard this ship under human command, following human rules and human ethics. You'll be treated fairly, but you'll also be held to a much higher standard than you're used to." "And if we refuse?" Gorak asked. "Then you'll be delivered to human authorities to stand trial for war crimes," Hana replied. "The evidence against you is extensive. Whisper of Stars has recordings of every illegal order you've ever given, every civilian target you've attacked, every prisoner you've mistreated." The first officer looked around at his crew. Most of them were staring at their feet, unwilling to meet his eyes. They had seen what the ship was truly capable of, and they understood that their old life was over whether they accepted it or not. "What guarantee do we have that humans will treat us fairly?" asked one of the younger officers. "The same guarantee we give to any member of our crew," Hana replied. "If you follow orders, do your job, and treat others with respect, you'll be treated with respect in return. If you try to sabotage the ship or harm other crew members, you'll face consequences." She paused and looked directly at Gorak. "But understand this. I am not just the captain of this ship. I am its partner. Whisper of Stars and I are connected in ways that go beyond normal command structures. If you try to hurt me or take control of this vessel, you won't be fighting just one human. You'll be fighting a living ship that has been waiting millions of years for the right person to trust." As if to emphasize her point, energy fields appeared around each of the Vorthak officers. The fields weren't harmful, but they made it clear that the ship could restrain or protect any crew member instantly if needed. "We need time to consider," Gorak said finally. "You have 1 hour," Hana replied. "After that, I'm setting course for human space. Anyone who hasn't decided to join the crew will be confined to quarters until we reach a human defense fleet base." The Vorthak officers filed off the bridge, leaving Hana alone with the ship's consciousness. She could feel Whisper of Stars around her, its presence warm and protective and somehow grateful. "We did it," she said softly. "We're finally free." Images appeared in her mind, visions of what they could accomplish together. Whisper of Stars showed her its exploration capabilities, its ability to travel to distant galaxies and discover new forms of life. It shared its knowledge of builder technology, revealing secrets that could advance human science by thousands of years. But most importantly, it showed her the other ships. Scattered throughout the galaxy were dozens of builder vessels, all waiting for their own true captains to find them. Some were being used by other alien races, just as Whisper of Stars had been used by the Vorthak. Others drifted free in space, patient and hopeful. With Whisper of Stars as her flagship, Hana could find these other ships and help them find their proper crews. Humanity would gain allies more powerful than anything they had ever imagined, and the galaxy would finally see the true potential of builder technology. She activated the ship's communication systems and opened a channel to Human Defense Fleet. Headquarters. This is Commander Lee Hanna of the Human Defense Fleet. Broadcasting from the builder vessel Whisper of Stars, she announced. I am transmitting complete intelligence data on Vorthak military operations, including the locations of all their bases and fleets. The war situation has changed significantly. I am returning to human space with critical new capabilities and strategic information. She paused and smiled, feeling the ship's joy mixing with her own. Tell Admiral Chen that we're bringing home the most advanced warship in the galaxy, along with a complete map of enemy positions. The Vorthak thought they had captured just another human prisoner. They had no idea they were delivering their greatest weapon directly into our hands. As Whisper of Stars changed course toward Earth, its hull began to shine with its original white radiance. The dark paint that the Vorthak had applied fell away like old skin, revealing the beautiful crystalline surface underneath. For the first time in millions of years, a builder ship was truly alive again, with a captain worthy of its loyalty and power. The galaxy was about to change in ways that no one could imagine.